Break Fix's History of Motorsports series is brought to you in part by the International Motor Racing Research Center, as well as the Society of Automotive Historians, the Watkins Glen Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Argetsinger family.
David Crowther, The Ultimate Weekend Warrior, by Alana Roberts. Alana Roberts and her husband received a collection from a Canadian race driver's estate. David Crowther, the driver, competed from the 1960s to the late 1980s in various events, including autocross, rallying, and ice racing, participating almost every weekend from January to October. The collection comprises extensive race results, news clippings, programs, and even race banquet menus, offering a remarkable glimpse into the life of an everyman driver. Alana's presentation discusses how the International Motor Racing Research Center supports both researchers and race enthusiasts while preserving the legacies of drivers like David Crowther. This presentation will not only celebrate David's extensive racing career, but also emphasize the importance of archival research centers in maintaining motorsport and driver heritage. Alana Roberts is a graduate of Mount Holyoke College and the University of Buffalo School of Law. She is a novice autocross competitor and racing history enthusiast with a passion for classic British cars, along with her husband, Trevor. Among their collection are a first-year production 1959 Austin Mini and a 1958 Austin Healey Bug-Eye Sprite. Through their connections to the classic Mini world, Alana and Trevor became custodians of David Crowther's collection of race results, programs, and various other racing ephemera. While cataloging the collection to donate to the IMRRC, Alana's passion for racing history merged with her love of academia, and it is an honor to present the collection and her experience cataloging it.
Alana Roberts, she's going to tell us about David Crowther, the Ultimate Weekend Warrior.
Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, I'll introduce David a little bit. Just briefly, you may have read in my abstract that I was going to bring props. And I did. Right here we see David Crowther's helmet from 1961 and his rallying clipboard. It's cool. As you'll see, this collection is comprised of so many papers, so many photographs, newspaper clippings, but it's kind of cool to see the stuff that was touched by Dave, right, that was held in his hands. So 3 years ago today, or rather in September 2021, I experienced my first vintage festival here at the Glen. I can still recall how completely enthralled I was with all of it. Gorgeous cars, the way they smelled, and the way they sounded. It was also the very first weekend that I got to set foot in the IMRRC. As a book lover, I wish I could say that it was the books that first caught my attention, but it was not. It was the energy, the passion that goes beyond cars, racing, even books. It was the people there. I was and I am hooked. We are so lucky that a place like the IMRRC exists and helps, along with the Society of Automobile Historians, host amazing events like the one we are at today. Last year, I attended as a mere guest and auditor, and I left with the thought that maybe, hey, I could do that too. I am not a professional historian, just someone with a love and an appreciation for motorsport. But maybe that is why I think it is so cool today that I get to share a collection of a driver, not a professional, but a true everyman grassroots driver, who I hope you leave today now having gotten to hear a little bit of his story. David Crowther, the Ultimate Weekend Warrior. In my presentation, I largely introduced David in the context of his cars, his races, the tracks he spent time on, and the clubs whose membership's own stories are preserved within the collection. I then describe why this collection, not of a driver like Sterling Moss or AJ Foyt, has a meaningful place in the IMRRC, and how I hope it can inspire others to be donated and cataloged. My husband Trevor met David through our classic Mini friend, Mark Law. And after David passed away, Trevor and I were entrusted with boxes of his racing life. Numerous programs, countless results, club newsletters, and other ephemera. Some of it we are still going through, so please know that this collection, as I understand it, is only going to continue to grow. To many, it is just papers, cool papers, but papers that may have been bound for the trash. If it weren't for Mark recognizing that Trevor and I, racing nerds, would probably like to see it. Thankfully, that was not the case, and it did in fact make its way over the Canadian border to us. I cannot tell you how cool it was the first evening we really dug in. There was so much. We quickly realized that this incredible collection belonged somewhere it could be appreciated by many. So we decided to donate it to the IMRRC. This collection, at least to me, serves as David's life, his racing career, and holds significance. And I hope to honor his legacy and encourage others to spend time telling grassroots motorsports stories. We can't have a racing driver without a race car, of course. And Misty, seen here with David behind the wheel and also Trevor behind the boot, is a pretty incredible car. A 1964 Austin Cooper S with the rare 1071 engine, 549 exported that year. Misty would have been a pretty competitive car for her day. And as you'll see, competitive it was. Misty still exists today in the trusted care of Mark on behalf of David and his wife Nancy, whose role I will talk about in a little bit, or allow her to talk, as you'll see. David was not a professional driver, but he approached motorsports with passion and dedication. Here we see him taking the flag in a meet at Harewood as a novice. From autocross to ice racing, Dave raced in a variety of disciplines from January to October, spanning 3 decades. David's career began in the 1960s with events like driving skill tests, slaloms, and winter rallies. This decade showcases his early involvement and skills building. Grassroots motorsports events focusing on precision driving, rally navigation, and time challenges reflect the popular style of motorsport at the time in Canada. Events that would not break the bank and could be done with an average entry-level sports car of the time, such as Minis, Triumphs, MGs, and Datsuns. The 1970s show a transition into more competitive slalom and solo events, as well as continued participation in rallies. Slalom racing involved navigating a course of cones, while solo events were timed runs on closed circuits, kind of a precursor to autocross as we now know it. This period also marks the most prolific period of racing for David, with the greatest number of entries. In the 1980s, David took his racing to a new area, focusing heavily on ice racing, which became one of his specialties, and where I can attest to his competitiveness as we have a box of his trophies at home. I am still trying to collect more information from this period of his racing life, but when doing a beginning dive into him on social media, this was the period where drivers still around remember Dave from. It's a sad reality that we are losing drivers like Dave every day, but their collections allow their memories to live on. One of the highlights of diving into David's collection was his proclivity for keeping everything, or what felt like everything. Here we see his provisional racing license from a driver's school he attended in 1968, along with a write-up of the event and a list of fellow drivers. It not only gives us a perspective on grassroots racing education, but also the variety of cars and drivers that took part. Over the past year, I have spent time at the IMRRC as one of the selling points I made to Duke and Mark when donating this collection was that I would also be the one to catalog it. It was difficult picking through 4 or 5 archive boxes of materials to pick the things that I think Dave would want seen. But I felt that it was important to highlight the materials that show not only his prowess and passion, but also the community that he was a part of the grassroots racing scene in Canada in the 60s through the 80s. Dave possessed a skill I envy even beyond his ability to throw a Cooper S around. He was meticulous. The next few slides are scans from his photo albums, generously loaned to me for this presentation by Nancy Crowther. In these albums, beside each image, Dave also cataloged his results from that particular race. And again, we can see the variety of cars that took part. Dave was very proud of his results in his racing career. Throughout his collection are not only meticulous notes about his results, and points for the season, but also news clippings featuring him and his fellow drivers. One great clipping that unfortunately did not make this presentation is a clipping about a local solo event causing a stir in the community due to the noise generated, and a letter circulated to the competitors apologizing for having to cut the event short. These were not events at gilded tracks. This was true down and dirty hobbyist racing. And there he is taking the checkered flag. His wife, Nancy, initially gave him a year to get it out of his system. But soon, Nancy herself was equally captivated by the racing world, turning what was meant to be a brief phase into a lifetime of mutual enthusiasm and competition. Mark had told us stories about Dave, and I knew his wife, Nancy, is still alive. But up until recently, I had not had the honor of meeting her. During a trip this year to Canada for Bronte British Car Day, Mark and Trevor surprised me with the opportunity to sit down and talk with Nancy. I was only mildly annoyed that I hadn't had a chance to prepare questions, but it didn't matter. Nancy knew Dave, and Nancy was there for his passion in more ways than one. Instead of trying to sum up Nancy's role, I'd instead like to play a clip from my time spent with her.
He had a best friend named Colin who had an MG. And Colin had a very terrific father. Colin's father was born in England. And he was just a factory worker, like Colin's father. Dave's father was like a manager. He was higher up. Now, it was Colin's father, not Dave's father. But he said to the boys, Colin and Dave, I'm going to give you boys $500 each for entry fees to go racing. Okay. And in those days, that was okay. And so both of them, they went as a team. Both were red, like Dave's Misty, and then the MG, and they raced. And the year before we got married, he did it. We were engaged, but I said, you got to get it out of your system, because once we're married, like other things, right? But I could tell, like, right from the beginning, like, motorsport was his love. So he decided that's what he wanted, a year of racing. And he thought he'd sort of get it out of the system. But it ended up, immediately went into driving skills, slalom. And we did that for a long time. And did the whole Ontario circuit. And it meant traveling a lot. We started out very basic. Dave even changed the tires at the event. He put the racing tires in the back seat.
We do that now.
We didn't have a trailer. That's how we started. I used to always go with him. I was more or less a crew. Like I'd keep track of all the scoring. I loved doing it. I enjoyed being there.
That explains why all the scoring is so neatly written.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, because he was very neat too. Yeah. And he, wasn't he?
Very.
And very meticulous
organized
as well. So it was probably him, not me. But
I've seen both your handwritings. They're both pretty good.
yeah, they are. But no. So when he was road racing, I was always involved. Like I enjoyed timing and lap scoring. We belonged to a car club, and I got a reputation for the timing and the lap scoring. So when the car club was doing events, I always got stuck in the timing end of things. Like right from the beginning, I enjoy cars, I enjoy racing, and I was happy doing what I was doing. In those days, it was very, very few girls that actually competed.
Funny, because when I met my husband, he was also autocrossing, and I sort of started his crew and then wound up racing myself, and actually wound up working in timing for a bit. So it's funny, the parallels you find in a collection like this, the sort of self-insert you find. And the entire interview was not an interview, it was just Nancy telling stories about Dave for 2 hours. And certainly we're gonna find a way to incorporate this 2-hour interview into the collection itself as it exists at the IMRRC. So I've briefly described the extent of this collection, but I'd like to highlight the true breadth of it. Single-spaced, size 12 font, the catalog extends 4 pages of programs, race results, entry lists, rules and regulations, newsletters, and numerous other pieces of ephemera, including correspondence. Race results span 3 decades, documenting not just Dave's finishes, lap times, positions, and points, but countless other drivers, potentially someone's father, someone's grandfather, or even someone's grandmother, as women were not immune to the lure of racing in Canada at this time period. Throughout these results, we can also track the evolution of drivers themselves, with women drivers becoming more common into the 70s and 80s, and the types of cars ever changing. The collection also includes local club newsletters, capturing the efforts taken on by a community of like-minded men and women. As an autocross competitor myself, it should not have surprised me the excitement and sometimes the drama these newsletters captured, as well as the sheer number of people they revealed had to be involved in order to put these events on. Autocross remains a popular motorsport today, and having a collection of rules and regulations from the 1960s onward helps track the development and the evolution of the sport from then to now. I was overwhelmed with the project initially, and probably definitely had taken on more than I anticipated, but it was truly a worthwhile endeavor. One thing that struck me is kind of odd, but I think helps demonstrate David's collection, how unique it is, are the things kept, or maybe you or I might have tossed them. Banquet tickets to year-end award dinners, and not just that, but the food menus. Dave kept it all. Events such as the 1962 and 1963 Canadian Winter Rally were extremely well documented, including the entry packet, acceptance letter, correspondence, and results. Again, the novice meet at Harewood was equally well documented. A day at Harewood was a chance for amateur drivers to experience the notable track, and events held at Harewood are throughout David's collection. The Midas Muffler Slalom was one of the slalom events in which David participated, offering a platform to better his driving skills. These events, popular in the 60s and 70s, required drivers to navigate a cone course with precision and speed, testing their car control and agility. The event packets included in the collection often have the course diagrams as well, offering insight into early and evolving course design. Hosted by the British Automobile Racing Club of Toronto, the driving skill test was a vital part of early motorsport development in Canada. Events like these were instrumental for grassroots racers, providing a controlled environment to enhance driving skills and earn recognition in the community. Ice racing, particularly through the British Empire Motorsports ice sprints, became a significant aspect of Dave's racing portfolio in the 1980s. Ice sprints involved navigating a course on a frozen surface, which required advanced handling skills and quick reflexes. Nimble British cars, like Dave's ice racing Mini, a 1962 Cooper named Minerva, were adept at ice racing. And the standout tracks. Mossport, now known as Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, is a renowned motorsport venue located in Ontario, approximately 75 kilometers east of Toronto. The circuit was the second purpose-built road race course in Canada and was designed and built in the late 1950s. We mentioned Harewood. Harewood Acres was a popular motorsport venue, also in Ontario. Originally an airfield during World War II, it was later converted into a racetrack and became a central hub for racing events in Ontario from the 1950s through the 1970s. Green Acres was a motorsport circuit located near Port Albert in Ontario, and it was active from 58 to 62. The track hosted various sports car events, attracting numerous enthusiasts and competitors during its operational years. Unfortunately, it ceased operations in 1962, unable to survive for a longer period of time. In Waterford Hills, to my knowledge, Dave's only foray into racing in the States near Detroit. Established in 1958 on the grounds of the Oakland County Sportsman's Club, it stands as one of the oldest racetracks in the United States and the sole road racing course in Southeast Michigan. Dave was invited to compete in an event hosted by a local Corvette club, hoping to expand their horizon. He came along with 9 other mini drivers for an event held in May of 1964. I don't yet have the results for this particular event, but as I was told, the mighty minis held their own against the larger and more outright powerful Corvettes. And in true hometown legend fashion, sometimes the story, I think, is more important than the facts. Before World War II, there was little in the way of organized auto racing in Ontario. There were stock car races and some dirt track racing as well as motorcycle races. Organizations like CASC, the Canadian Automobile Sport Club, changed that in the 1950s. In 1967, CASC was recognized by the FIA as the governing body of motorsport in Canada. This affiliation allowed CASC to sanction major events, including the Canadian Grand Prix, and to collaborate with other sanctioning bodies, such as the SCCA in America. Today, CASC is an association of over 30 member clubs within Ontario, sanctioning events, licensing competitors, setting safety standards, and handling administrative matters. The British Automobile Racing Club Ontario, BARC, established in 1959 by motorsport enthusiasts in the Toronto area, is a volunteer-driven organization still around today, dedicated to organizing and participating in motorsport activities across Ontario. The London Automobile Sport Club, LASK, based in London, Ontario, is a sports car racing club affiliated with CASC. Established in 1958, LASK remains a hub for motorsport enthusiasts in the region, organizing and participating in various racing events. And finally, we have the British Empire Motor Club, BEMC, established in 1928 in Toronto. It's one of Canada's oldest and most influential motorsport organizations. Initially focusing on promoting British motorcycles, the club expanded its scope over the decades to include various forms of motorsport. In 1939, BEMC began accepting car enthusiasts as full members. And the club's first combined motorcycle and car event took place in 1950 at an old airport, and this event marked the beginning of their involvement in auto racing. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention that Dave, in fact, made several pilgrimages to the Glen like many racing fans. These racing pictures come from his photo albums and show drivers, thanks to Bill Green for identifying these, such as Jack Brabham and Sterling Moss, and local meccas like Smalley's Garage. I was initially unaware of David's travels to the Glen until I was generously loaned some of his photo albums. And it was a really cool full circle moment to know that he had journeyed to our backyard to take in the sights and the sounds of the Watkins Glen Grand Prix. David's collection is far more than a mere assortment of old programs, race results, and trophies. It's a rich time capsule that offers us a rare glimpse into the history of grassroots motorsports in Canada. It tells a compelling story of dedication, passion, and the spirit of individuals like David Crowther, who were not professional racers with sponsorships, but ordinary people driven by an extraordinary love for competition and community. Through this lens, we see how they transformed their weekends into competitive pursuits, turning airstrips and frozen lakes into racetracks, and challenging each other not for fame or fortune, but for the sheer thrill of the sport. David Crowther was a quintessential embodiment of this grassroots motorsport spirit. His journey through 3 decades of racing, from driving skill tests and rallies to slaloms and ice races, paints a picture of a man who thrived on the camaraderie, challenges, and rare excitement that came with motorsport. This was a time when racing was more about innovation and resourcefulness than about technology and big budgets. By preserving David's legacy through this collection, we do more than honor a single racer. We safeguard an entire chapter of motorsport history that might otherwise fade into obscurity. It is a testament to the everyday enthusiasts who built the racing foundation in Canada. Grassroots events required a team of volunteers, as seen by the list of volunteers in the center, often comprised of mostly the drivers themselves, along with a few good-hearted spouses and friends. And as seen here by one of Dave's many notes on his racing expenditures and budgets, this was not a hobby of unlimited resources. While piecing together this presentation, I've come to realize that we're only scratching the surface. There's more to uncover, more stories to tell, and more details to explore. Collections like these may initially come from one driver, but as you can see here, there are countless drivers who are just waiting to be unearthed from someone's boxes of memories, enjoying the IMRRC's archives. I can't tell you where we go from here, but I hope this collection reminds us all that from humble beginnings, stories worth telling can grow. And as you can see, this is what I mean. We've got lists of entries. They actually have biographies of some of the drivers themselves, and this just makes up 1/100th of this man's collection. Thank you to the IMRRC, to Duke, Bill, Mark, Dwayne, Kip, of course, Nancy and David Crowther, Mark Law, Trevor, and to all the other drivers whose stories are yet to be told. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. That was fascinating, and as you point out, this is one story of one man. Goodness knows how many more are out there.
Yeah.
We at the IMRRC are always ready, willing, and quite happy to receive material like this and preserve the legacy of those people. Does anyone have any questions for Alana?
Motocross is a venue I've heard a lot about. I've seen tall spatterings. You're involved in it. How many, would you have a guess, how many people are involved in, do you have any idea?
In an autocross, do you mean national?
Like we talk about as in the state of New York, for example, or in Broward County, or does everybody have any?
I would say at every competition, there's probably, what do you want to say, 60 drivers?
I can tag in on that. We generally in the Finger Lakes region have anywhere from a really slow weekend of about 85 drivers upwards of, when we do the national tour here, several hundred.
We have Salina, Kansas. I mean, it's a pervasive motorsport.
It's a great way to get involved from every level, you know, drive what you brought, automatic. I personally stalled every single start, my first event, and I kept coming back with a smile on my face, not just because of the event itself, but the people involved.
To kind of shift to Alana's last slide here too, that one picture on the left side of the screen is a very, very special picture for the fact that that was David's garage. He spent hours out there just sitting there, reading, drinking, doing whatever, enjoying his cars, even when he wasn't able to drive them anymore. One of those blessing moments, he passed away in the chair in the back of that photo in that very garage.
Looking at his cars.
With a beer in his hand,
Yep.
with a nurse by his side.
Yep.
And that was his last warm, fuzzy memory about auto racing.
Yeah, no, this is truly a collection that has come to not only, I think, embody Dave, but so many other stories. I was worried I was going to get teary-eyed on the last slide, and thanks, Trevor, you kind of did it. But no, this is a really cool collection, and just thank you so much for letting me share it with you all.
How did you become interested in this one particular gentleman?
So my husband and I, Trevor, met because of our Mini Coopers, and so we have a large group of friends, right? Mini drivers tend to find other Mini drivers. It's a small community. And our friend Mark Law was good friends with Dave, in fact, kind of like a son. Dave never had kids. And so when Dave passed away, Mark is not at all a paper guy and was kind of threatening to throw this collection into the trash. And we put our foot down and said, absolutely not. Please let us hoard it. I don't know what's going to happen with it. But pretty much instantly, the first time I started looking through the collection, I knew it belonged at the IMRRC.
That's great. Well, thank you for your interest. Thanks for preserving it. It's terrific.
Terry Johnson writes, a question for Alana, but also for the historians at the IMRRC. Do you have any suggestions for the preservation of old documents, programs, photos, etc., archival materials used?
Yes, if it's at all possible. I might punt this to Joe as our new archivist here at the IMRRC. Welcome, Joe, because I think that would be really important, right? People want to know how they can preserve their dad's, their grandfather's collections.
Thank you, Alana. First of all, I would say If you're interested in donating things, please reach out to us and let us know what you have. You can contact us. Our information's online. That would be the best course of action, I would suggest, because when you donate it to an organization like ours, it becomes public and we can make it accessible to other researchers. If you're just interested in caring for things at your house, I mean, try to keep them out of the basement, out of the attic, out of the garage. Keep them in your house so that the temperature is not erratic and not super humid and not super dry. Archival materials are expensive. If you really want to preserve things, you can look around for acid-free, archival quality materials are available online through a number of vendors.
Thanks, Joe. And I will say just briefly, it's really cool, again, from coming here last year as a spectator and getting to be involved. I'm just very grateful. Yes, Paul?
Not just a question, but just a note of gratitude to you and your husband for accepting that material.
Yeah.
And then for cataloging it and then donating it. As an historian, the work that people like you guys do is absolutely essential, because otherwise it gets thrown out. And plus, I'm a Canadian, and this
great.
this really hits home. So thank you very much for a wonderful
Yeah,
time.
we're lucky to live so close, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
This episode is brought to you in part by the International Motor Racing Research Center. Its charter is to collect, share, and preserve the history of motorsports, spanning continents, eras, and race series. The center's collection embodies the speed, drama, and camaraderie of amateur and professional motor racing throughout the world. The center welcomes serious researchers and casual fans alike to share stories of race drivers, race series, and race cars captured on their shelves and walls and brought to life through a regular calendar of public lectures and special events. To learn more about the center, visit www.racingarchives.org. This episode is also brought to you by the Society of Automotive Historians. They encourage research into any aspect of automotive history. The SAH actively supports the compilation and preservation of papers, organizational records, print ephemera and images to safeguard, as well as to broaden and deepen the understanding of motorized wheeled land transportation through the modern age and into the future. For more information about the SAH, visit www.autohistory.org.
We hope you enjoyed another awesome episode of Break Fix Podcast, brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or get involved, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Grand Touring Motorsports. And if you'd like to learn more about the content of this episode, be sure to check out the follow-on article at gtmotorsports.org. We remain a commercial-free and no annual fees organization through our sponsors, but also through the generous support of our fans, families, and friends through Patreon. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can get access to more behind-the-scenes action, additional pit stop minisodes, and other VIP goodies, as well as keeping our team of creators fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, gummy bears, and Monster. So consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without you, none of this would be possible.